Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, a place you'll find stories and fanfictions written by me, your host, Tai Tiger. Today we're diving back into Storytime with Cosplay Dude 67, a series going on the channel where I've granted Cosplay Dude 67 the ability to upload some of his fanfictions and storylines onto this channel. So today we're diving back into Sword Art Online. These have already been published on the old podcast of Storytime with Cosplay Dude 67, but are now being brought to this channel. So, of course, without further ado, I give you Cosplay Dude 637.
Sword Art Online, Dark Forest, Chapter 3, World Killer. I tightened the grip on both my swords. I have been in a lot of tight spots in my gaming life, but this one was going to be harder than most. Every one of the other fights I've been in, I have known the stats, or at least the skills, of the players next to me. But this time, it was just me and a newbie, a cat sith boy by the name of Ruin. All I knew about him is he was a kid back in SAO, and he was now a cat sith lancer. Fenrir lets out a huge howl. Bringing me back to the task at hand. The other wolves that surround Ruin and I seem to bow to Fenrir, then back away, forming a circle around the three of us. Ruin gives me a scared look and grips up on his spear. He runs in and attacks Fenrir straight on. The large wolf seems to just smile and bite onto Ruin's spear. He did not seem to bite on the spear so hard to break it, but to be able to pick it up. Ruin is then thrown back and forth in the air as Fenrir lets the spear go. As Ruin falls to the ground, Fenrir uses his back hind legs and kicks Ruin right into a tree. This all happens in a split second, but in the time I am able to see that there are monocles on Fenrir's front two legs, right at the ankles, with maybe 4 links of chain on it. This gives me an idea. "You alive, Ruin?" I shout. Ruin slowly gets to his feet, still holding his spear, and nods. "HP low, but I'll make it," Ruin replies. "Okay, get ready. I have a plan, but you will need to weaken him and then tame him," I order. "Do what to him?" Ruin shouts as Fenrir turns and looks at me. "You're a beast tamer, so now it's time to tame," I shout and head in for my attack. I run full speed at Fenrir, and just as soon as I could see the fog coming from his nose, I jump with all my power and strength. Being the high level that I am, I'm able to get to where I wanted to be. I land on his back. I dig Excalibur into his back from Fenrir's neck and run it all the way down. The wolf lets out a blood-curdling scream and hikes its butt, sending me flying back over his head and landing right in front of him again. This is just what I wanted. Again, I run full speed at him, but this time I drop under him, and with a little bit of skill and a whole lot of luck, I put my black sword into the ground with the chain link attached to it. Then I roll to one side and swing Excalibur up and into Fenrir's chest and down his leg. Then again, I use my sword to pin him down using the chain link. "Now!" I shout. Ruin kicks off the tree he was leaning on, getting some extra momentum, and digs his spear into Fenrir's back foot, pinning it to the ground. I am now free from under the wolf, and I can see its HP is in the yellow. "Cast your spell now!" I say. Ruin nods and starts to speak in fairy tongue. As the fairy glyphs spread around him, all the other wolves start to howl. It almost starts to sound like a sad, sad song. Ruin finished casting his spell, and the collar around Fenrir turns red. "Congratulations!" screen forms over Fenrir. To any gamer, they would know that meant we have won the fight. As for the other wolves, they run off. I drop to my butt and sigh. "Man, I'm glad that worked," I say. Ruin pulls out his spear and tries to pull out my swords, but is unable to. I stand up, walk over, and easily pull them out. The three of us walk out of the forest. Once out of the dark forest, we are met by Asuna and Lifa hugging me. Then all their eyes turn to Fenrir with shock and amazement. Ruin smiled and patted one of Fenrir's enormous legs. "It's cool, guys. He's with me now," Ruin says. They look over at me wanting answers. Ruin tamed Fenrir, I reply. Guys, you should have seen it. Kirito was so cool. I mean, I've never seen anyone move as fast as in a game as he does. He was like totally Ruin says and trails off, opening his main screen. What is it? Leaf asks. It says I acquired a new spell, Ruin says, puzzled. He starts to speak the fairy words, and when the spell was done, Fenrir shrinks down to the size of a normal dog and looks just like a husky. What happened? Ruin asks, looking down at Fenrir. What was the name of the spell? Asuna asks. Travel size, Ruin replies. Well, here you go, man. The spell made it where Fenrir can be placed in your inventory screen to travel, Klein says, slapping Ruin on the back. The next day, we decide to fill in the rest of the gang on what happened in the Dark Forest. We all meet up on floor 22 of New Einkrad. This is where Asen and I had bought a house by the lake. I was settled in my normal chair by the fireplace. Yui, now in her normal form, was sitting on my knee. Asuna, Lifa, Lisbeth sat on the love seat. Sion, Silica, Klein, and Ruin were on the couch. Fenrir was laying at Ruin's feet, and Silica's familiar Pina was asleep on Yui's lap. Okay, let me get this right, Sion says, looking at Asuna and Lifa, then Klein, and lastly me. You all decided to go check out a new forest, and what, forgot we were your friends? No, Sion. They must have forgotten how to message us, Lisbeth says with a dark, evil smirk. Come on, ladies, you know it's not like that, Asuna says. It was to only be a reconnaissance mission, I add. Yeah, then someone had to go and stick their spear into an unknown area, Lifa says and jabs a finger at Ruin. If looks could kill, poor Ruin would have been dead 10 times over, as Sion, Lisbeth, and even Silica glared at him. Hi, he says, holding up his hand and sounding like Stitch from the Disney movie. So, that's your familiar? Silica asks, finally speaking. Yeah, this is Fenrir, Ruin says, laying his hand on the dog's head. And you can make it grow, she asks him. Ruin just nods and Fenrir yawns and stretches. This is his travel size, Liva says, with a little smile looking at Ruin. I slowly look at her, then over to him. Ruin blushes looking at Lifa. Okay, fine, whatever. But what is all this about a Loki? Lisbeth asks. Yeah, MMO news just been buzzing about an ultimate quest starting, Sion adds. Yeah, that was kind of my fault. I unwittingly let him out, Ruin says with a heavy sigh. No, it's all of our fault. We all chose to keep going once inside the forest, Asuna says with a cheerful smile. Asuna was always like this. She would not let anyone take a blame when it was a group decision. Klein, Lifa, and I nod looking at Ruin. Well, anyways, it would seem that the raising of Loki was the start of Ragnarok, and if we don't stop him from letting Ragnarok come too, it will be a game killer, Ruin explains. Game killer? Silica asks. You see, in Norse mythology, Ragnarok is the end of the world, an event that will kill everything and everyone. So with that being said, my theory is that it will delete the game. Alfheim Online, Ruin answers. For a few seconds, the whole room is silent. The game makers can't be okay with this, Sion puts forth, and then everyone looks at me. I had somehow formed a relationship with the digital spirit of Akahiba Kayaba. Sorry guys, I have not seen or spoken to him in a very long time, I respond. What about the humans that run the server, Lifa inquires. It seems like this was always built into the game, Asuna says. So this was always going to happen. It was always going to be an event, Klein implies. Okay, it seems clear to me that we need more info, I say, patting Yui on the back. She picks up Pina and stands up. I also get to my feet. Okay, here's the plan. I will dig deeper into the web, see what I can find out, and see if I can get a hold of Kayaba's ghost. Even though I have talked to it so many times, it still is strange to say ghost. Everyone else, start digging also. Ask your races. Ask your race leaders. Ask your friends. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this," I lay out. They all nod and start to log off. One by one, they leave the room in a blue light till it's just Asuna, Yui, and me. "Yui, I want you to go all out to see if Loki winning will really delete the game. Dive into the mythology, see if you can learn any weakness Loki may have. I think we're going to need it," I say and pat her on the head. Yui smiles and looks up at me. "You got it, Daddy." Asuna walks over and hugs me and kisses me deeply. "And this is going to be one of the hardest fights yet," she asks. "I fear it could be the last one. After all, if Ruin's right, this is a world killer," I say with a heavy sigh and open my main window and log out.
This story was written and read to you by Cosplay Dude 637. Make sure you go check out the playlist in the same name, where you can find all stories that Cosplay Dude has done on this channel. He's also got some storylines on Tiger Tail's Game Over, so make sure you go check out that as well. Now, on with the outro.
This podcast is a production of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.
Thank you very much for listening to this chapter. If you want to hear more fanfictions and storylines, I have plenty of other Tiger Tales channels that you guys should be checking out. I'm going to give you a list of all of them. There's Tiger Tales, the channel that started it all. There's Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, a channel dedicated to storylines with the first person view. Tiger Tales Game Over, a channel dedicated to video game storylines. Tiger Tales X, official crossover fanfictions on this channel. Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins, all my original storylines coming from myself go on that one. Then you have Tiger Tales One-Offs, a Tiger Tales channel dedicated to one-off storylines that have no continuation. We've also now expanded to podcasts, so make sure you check out everywhere you can listen to your podcast, the Fiction Fighters podcast, where you'll find a storyline called the Fiction Fighters, where fiction is power. I want to use this moment to thank all my supporters and the partners of Tiger Tales. First off, make sure you check out Cosplay Dude 637. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of all the places you can find him and where you can listen to his fanfictions. First off, there's Power Rangers Universe 19, a podcast dedicated to Power Rangers and Kamen Rider storylines. You'll also find a few of my stories on there too. Then, you also got Sailor Moon E, a Sailor Moon dedicated podcast storyline. Then you have The Order. Cosplay Dude 637's original storyline goes on this podcast. Then you have the One Piece audio drama YouTube channel, an audio drama dedicated to One Piece. Then you have Nostalgia Time, a YouTube channel dedicated to all fanfictions and storylines that are meant to make you feel nostalgic. You also have Marvel Universe 19, where you'll find Marvel related fanfictions. You can also find some of my storylines there too. Now, of course, me and Cosplay Dude 637 are part of a studio called the Three Ranger Bros Studios, so I'd like to mention the third member, Mark the Red Cornish Ranger, and his podcast, Naruto Comics, where he adapts comic books into audio dramas, and you can also find his original Power Ranger storylines there as well. A quick shout out to a few of my supporters. We have the If You Give a Dad a Podcast host, Jared. Make sure you check out his podcast, he interviews some amazing guests. The Zero to Hero podcast, the Bulk and Scholar podcasting, Billy and Jim, of course, have been there since the get-go, so make sure you check out the Zero to Hero podcast. Some of my stories wouldn't be here without the Author's Crown YouTube channel's host, A Crown, so make sure you check out the Author's Crown YouTube channel with his fanfictions there. Now, if you'd like to hear me interview content creators about their content, or geek about specific topics with a bunch of geeks, make sure you check out the Tiger Nexus podcast. My podcast can be found everywhere you can find your podcast, and we have a great time. We usually upload on Mondays. Now, of course, make sure you check out the links down below. It'll lead you to some of my other channels. I game on YouTube, I do artwork on YouTube, and I like to talk about movies, TV shows, and comic books on YouTube. So make sure you go check out the other channels. A huge thank you to everyone watching. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and of course hit that notification bell so you don't miss another chapter. Roar of passion, everybody, and I shall see you guys in the next one.
That before we can...
Don't touch my Pringles.